Chiku was being generous when he said that it was mildly neglected. So thanks for updating me on old email through my website. And it's such a pleasure to be here, to see many of you whom I know, but all of you who came out on a really beautiful day. And a lot of what I've been talking about in this seminar this week and talked about on Tuesday in a more lecture-oriented presentation is influence and how much other poems inform the poems that we write. And so I thought that I would read tonight poems of mine that do that in particular, and read some of the original poems that that echo or are rebutted in my poems. And but I wanted to start, perversely, with a little scripture, so bear with me. This is from Isaiah 6, 1 through 8. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim, each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the thresholds shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphim to me, having in his hand a burning coal which he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips, your guilt is taken away, and your sin forgiven. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, Here am I, send me. So it's all downhill from there. And I have a couple of poems that ricochet at least off of that text, and one also ricochets off of a poem by Federico Garcia Lorca, The Martyrdom of Saint Eulalia, of which his final stanza reads, Across the burnt-out skies, there blazes a monstrance between throats of rivulets and branches of nightingales. Stained glass springs up, Eulalia white on a white field. Angels and seraphim are crying, Holy, holy, holy. That I don't know the original Spanish, so I'm reading it to you from A. Lloyd's translation. But one of the ones that most clearly echoes from my first book is The Stable Earth, the Deep Salt Sea. I use the Latin but can't pronounce the Latin, so bear with that. The stable earth, the deep salt sea. After the dark and in the quaking, the candles on the lawn go out. You make a path across the slate like a snail. Everybody spooks. Duo seraphim clamabant alter ad alterum. What whistling comes from within the trees, from beneath the bushes there that bend beneath the breezes? There were children on the lawn barely walking. Plena est omnis terra, And you were divided like wells and like windows as access to a thing you represent. Take what regret allows and go toward light. Many years ago, the woman watched the child from the stoop. The doorknob broke, and then, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Then I said, here am I, send me. From that to the profane, Robert Frost, a couple of his poems, and for some reason there are poems by some poets who are so ingrained in me from early on that I have just in a way wanted to write very bastardized versions of. And Robert Frost has been victim in a couple of them. So I'll read the far superior Provide, which when I was in school was evidence that he was not simply a sort of bumbly nature poet, but had a darker side, which darker seemed to be equated with worthy of paying attention to. So provide. The witch that came, the withered hag, to wash the steps with pail and rag was once the beauty, Abishag. The picture pride of Hollywood, too many fall from great and good for you to doubt the likelihood. Die early and avoid the fate. Or if predestined to die late, make up your mind to die in state. Make the whole stock exchange your own. If need be, occupy a throne where nobody can call you crone. Some have relied on what they knew, others on being simply true. What worked for them might work for you. No memory of having starred atones for later disregard or keeps the end from being hard. Better to go down dignified with boughten friendship at your side than none at all. Provide. So this is Produce after Frost. The thinnest meal on the slightest isle sustains but poorly. So the file of men and women mile in consult with the wizened bat. Plumes and boas are where it's at. She won't remember saying that. If hunger takes them to the coast, they find a spectacle to toast, or several of their peers to roast. Those that make it to the south are lucky to live thumb to mouth. They might prefer the Catamount, where greenish mountains freeze the nuts. Those scavengings in art that's bust, the ravenous can be beauty sluts. Those lucky few who do adduce the food that keeps them from the noose will crave on to produce. Thanks, John. And then the pasture. Frost's poem. I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I'll only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear I may. I shan't be gone long. You come too. I'm going out to fetch the little calf that's standing by the mother. It's so young. It totters when she licks it with her tongue. I shan't be gone long. You come too. And he or she that's got the limb that holds me out on it. The girls are drifting in their ponytails and their pig iron boat. So much for Sunday. The dodo birds are making a racket to beat the band. You could have come too. The girls wave and throw their garters from their pig iron boat. Why is this charming? Where they were nailed on their knees, the garters all rip, you were expected. The youngest sees a fury in a centra, in a cloud. This is her intimation, and she balks. The boat begins rocking from the scourge of the sunset. The youngest starts the song. I spent a lot of time at one point with Francis Ponge, and I'll read you a brief translation of his The Frog from his shows, Les Choses. The Frog. When the rain in short slivers bounces in the saturated field, a dwarf amphibia, a one-armed Ophelia, hardly as big as a fist, leaps at times under the poet's steps and plunges into the next pool. Let the nervous creature go. It has lovely legs. Its whole body is gloved with impermeable skin. Meager meat, its long muscles are of an elegance neither fleshly nor fishly. But to leave the fingers, the quality of fluid is allied with it to the efforts of living. Goiterous, it pants. And this heart that beats big, these wrinkled eyes, this haggard mouth move me to pity to let it go. So this is Clock Radio, expunging Ponge. That each second escorts a fresh plash. Slatted awning, rec room wall, bald black translucence, the numerals flip. The methodical tumbling drives it to hum at the pitch it extracts from the wires. Its cousins in Holland sing slightly higher. Its march it propels with reluctance. Its drive is for the offbeat, the cack-handed, the apocopated. It sings with regret for its thrum. The clock radio strives to become its grandfather, only with ambivalence, spilling its pool on the nightstand with a modesty and steadiness in the clicks of its onerous job, in the particles that swirl in its wake. And then I won't read you actually from the original because it's a long poem, but one of the things that came up in this seminar the other day was the notion of matching one's lines, almost like Mad Libs, to another poet's lines in order to sort of get a sense of that cadence. And at one point, I was trying to sustain a line, which is difficult for me because my natural unit is a tetrameter, even pentameter is a stretch. And somebody advised that I should take a look at the longer lined poems of James Schuyler's and do something akin to that kind of matching or mad-libbing with those lines. And so I spent some time, and this poem was in part a result of that. And because it borrows fairly heavily in the poem itself from lines in his poem, Hymn to Life. I won't read the whole Hymn to Life before I read this, but I think you'll get a sense of it. It also is a poem about influence in one way or another. So it's called Smokes. It's for someone who's now a Chicago poet, was at that point a New York poet, David Trinidad, after James Schuyler, and imagines a visit by David to Schuyler when he was living in the Chelsea Hotel. Smokes. At the Chelsea Hotel, you sat on the edge of the bed while he rummaged through drawers for cigarettes. The wind set by a big tumult at the glass. Scraping the view, the lone plane tree scissored an arm and subsided. Suppose he had at that moment put his hand on your arm and said, "Ethan." You would have had to have told him that was not your name, that indeed you know no Ethan. Ethan may be an actor, but what writer was Ethan, and hadn't he summoned you here? In Washington, they called them redbuds, what was in bloom. Besides, suppose instead of correcting him, you had finally reached into your pocket for luckies, had offered him a lucky, and his gratitude and relief were discernible in the slight gesture he would make for you to wait while he found the poem. On the way in, you had just seen a small girl in a flat halter jumping at you from the stair. Can you imagine planting red buds in front of a brick house? The Virginia intellectual asked. Beyond the glass, the light and the wind were becoming Peter Brook's storm scene from King Lear. Suppose then that he found the sheet of paper that he was looking for, and with Buddha's frown, if Buddha frowned, he inhaled from the lucky, and the left corner of his lips rose as he read over silently the poem, and then settled beside you on the bed, taken without giving any indication with your raven hair, your nervous laugh. Suppose then he said, "Ethan, here it is. To live, he would read, watching you without seeming to. The forsythia bursts out first with the first single-headed daffodils. They riot with fire. In Atlanta, these have long come and gone by now. Suppose all of this happened and this attention was really there. Suppose he attended to the delicacy of your attention. Suppose he was a good mom. Suppose he didn't brush your arm with his arm. The sky darkened so quickly that the plane tree appeared spooky. A siren scrawled a wail down 23rd Street that made it impossible to speak in the room. You took this opportunity to light another cool and saw your hand shake although you were young. Suppose with the brush of his arm it was difficult to follow the poem, but it was a poem to die for, all of the nouns lined up and fascinating. Suppose he said, "Ethan, what do you think?" There was a time when Johnny Jump-Ups preceded Forsythia, the good old days. Evolution was the driving force behind the leapfrogging. Everyone had assumed you had meant something different than you did afterwards when you gave your account of the room. You saw the spring as though beyond a shutting door. The older poems, I mean by centuries, have given us enough time to really love them. Suppose you had responded with an unmediated admiration. Suppose then, "So Ethan, where are yours?" After you lit the cool and the siren fell, you heard over the racket of the wind a child running outside the door. A lady slipper in a Stroh's bottle by the bed made you think of Gloria Swanson in her last days, waxy and semi-translucent, speckled brown on green. He poured himself another Coke. Suppose then that under the ginkgo on Mercer Street, when the storm's lid had latched, he had said, "Come with us, Ethan, why don't you? The young at the least can decorate." This would have been like the Santa Maria bumping the lap of the East Hampton pier, waiting its turn for a roll. Night air whooshed the opaque lit wall. You waited for this, and he didn't. The redbud's a small tree, a scrapper, an adamant. Some are strong, some weak, some like you with the breath of forgiveness, cupping to light a cool. So that's the pedagogic part of the reading. And I wanted to read a little bit from, well, there's a slice of pedagogy later, but I wanted to read a little bit from Meme, the most recent book, which for me is an unusual book, and I want to give a shout out to my brother who actually helped me what's the word? Reconstitute, I guess, some of the phrases that we grew up with in the household, because the first part of the book is an elegy, in much of it in the language of my mother, and with a kind of foil in a whiny, more lyric voice that intercedes. So I'll read a few of those just to give you a flavor of what that's like. 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. She was a real stickler. Well, I couldn't get it for the life of me. All I remember is, Mademoiselle Skene, vous êtes une tête de bois. Where is there room for all I have to say in the deepening dark of fall's afternoon? Baubles, prizes in the cereal box. He was a trooper, but out in his neck of the woods, that was what they did. The others walked around in their skivvies all day. It's slim pickings. Dan said you didn't want any anyway. Fiddlesticks. Who rattled your cage? No, I do not have a Q-tip up here. Go ask your father. Wait, you're going downstairs like that over my dead body. In the sepulchre where the mother lay, at last some sleep to gain, Hannah helped me carve the oak into granite with her cane. Don't come in here all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, expecting us to give you more. I was just frosted. Thanks, Ray, this is just what the doctor ordered. No, you never see me have one with olives. Your father likes olives, but I can't stand them. No, cocktail onions are just pick small. Turn that down, Dan. Avocados, toothpicks, coleus, root sprawl, the diffident glints of a late day sun, rays splintered by leaves, they shake and, in their shaking, streak the light. Transparent murk of glasses at the glass. Would you move just 1 inch over? The light was in my eye. Turkey in the straw. This reveals a dynamic that goes on and on. Better get cracking. You're the one who made it an uphill battle. Your brother's going great guns. Stasis of the street behind her through the window. Leaves unstirred, grass erect, dun, 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 distant thud of pavement breakers in the noon. I don't want to hear a word from you until you pick up steam. Now go find Minneapolis. Get lost. Not my bailiwick. It was nip and tuck until Gladys got 7 in a row. He was miffed, but that's how we had fun back then. Get me another ice cube while you're up. Motored here, there to a floating bird's carcass. What bright feathers, what a talon or beak, said the rest. Often the sun came up on its shore side, often it shone on its nest. Well, that's what makes ball games. You say potato. Come over here in the light. There's something on your bazooms, right here. Oh, it's a leaf. So that's a sampling from the first section. In the second section, which is called The Devil or the Interjects, the interjected voice is just nasty. And so I'll read just a couple of those with apologies for the off-color. In the intimate turn, the beloved's breath, she's suddenly there. Whore. She's followed you to the cafe. You see her in the mirror's blink, making eyes at the waiter's son. Good hair, tight pants, but he's 3. Give those grains of saccharine dust a stir. Pathetic actress, and the whisper's hers. There's a fork of her scarf that's pinned to the booth, and you think, may it never set free. She's driven you out here with her taunting, pushed you out to the extremities of town where the dust coils in the wind and your own parched throat rasps. Go on, Missy, jump. But the land's straight and flat, and the prefab arsenal by the side of the road bears unbankable walls. Jump. So that's the middle section, which is blessedly very brief. And then the last section is a braiding of a lot of different posited breakups, relationships in which connections aren't made, and in a variety of different voices. So I'll just read a little bit out of that. And this is where the last little snippet of the influence stuff you'll be subjected to, because in the opening page of the long poem, the long braid of this last part, there's a mention of a poem which for absolutely no good reason has always been sort of the central poem in my brain, and it's Pound's Blandula Tenula Vagula, which reads, "What hast thou, O my soul, with paradise? Will we not rather, when our freedom's won, get us to some clear place wherein the sun lets drift in on us through the olive leaves a liquid glory? If at Sirmio, my soul, I meet thee when this life's outrun, will we not find some headland consecrated by airy apostles of terrene delight? Will not our cult be founded on the waves, clear sapphire, cobalt, cyanine, on triune azures, the impalpable mirrors, unstill of the eternal change? Soul, if she meet us there, will any rumor of havens more high and courts desirable lure us beyond the cloudy peak of Riva?" That's it. For some reason, I've always associated that with math. Spangled like showgirls in the gleam of our fears, shiny Christians in chainmail with our faux lizard shingling, whores limping to West Street from the Bank Street pier. We were wed in the chapel 10 years, 20 days before stone changed to rain, and people rained too, and cinders all sinking. Don't make so much noise, money, Saurus, of this. The signs were there to be read from the start in our faulty intelligence. There you go, a molehill, a mound, while the shrouded peaks of Rivas, mounts, tower still. The beloved storms to his drawn. The adulterer winces at bears. The philanderer slips him the date rape drug. The fish husband shouts like a shrew. If she's Nancy, then she's Kate or Sue. Once Kate at noon, stumbling up from bed, knew the slip his Johnson made in her slide, or him bent over Jeremy far down the beach. She could only see the small and tall from where she lay, her feet like steelies in their boots of sand out of which he and Jeremy sprung. Then they were near. Boo, she remembers in the banging sun, waking Jeremy on her chest at her ear. And he, her husband, a Klieg lighthouse with its back to her, raking its view of the sea. Now shake that. Think. Fight over tinsel, the plumber's bill. Fight of the unripe figs. Fight of the speaking when touring lost. Fight under overpass in Catalan cafe. Method of punishment argument. Fight of the fried sisters' homecoming. Amphetamines. Second opinion scrape on the ward. Fight over sharpening knives. Ways to pick cantaloupe before freak frosts descend. Spat of the smell like cigarettes of frittering dough until big tickets out. Fight on compliance with a sentence after the conviction. And was strap hang a noun? His taking pillows to the den post the on and on, curling in the tamale light TV made back then. The fink was fickle. Finkle, 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 little star. 1, she was starting to look like her mother. 2, I won't read the numbers, but it's a numbered list. She was clingier than pantyhose. He stayed out all night. She liked to cuff me when she got plowed. He was vapid. She was a fool. She ridiculed me in front of the dogs. He stuck a hairpin in my ear. He had an affair with my older sister. He spent our money on booze and bennies she wouldn't clean, and it stank like bad beef. I tried to hang myself, but it didn't work. He didn't like my sweet potato pie and said his mother made it better. She wouldn't learn trigonometry for me. I took it all out on the little ones. She couldn't get pregnant. He was shooting blanks. He made for a pitiful sight in a bathing suit. I wanted out, then I didn't, then I did. I just couldn't live without Sally. He wanted to start a family and to start it now with me. She split when the money ran out. I gave her 3 more chances, and then I left. She hated the Dave Clark 5. I was indentured. I didn't know how I could choose not to. He went out for gum, etc. By April, she had passed on. He saw only his idea of me. We couldn't agree on an invitation font. He was bad news, and it's always like, bad news, here I am. I love her, him, them. I'd never go back. It's stringy out here in the stratosphere. The sad night ticks like a homemade bomb. I dream each night in Cancer Queen so many nights about the churning streets, the way each person passing in his, her surly, individuated shoes I didn't know but could have known, this seeming simpler now than then. I picked up a gal in a bar. She said she'd ignore my cigar. But when I was done relieving my gun, she said I was not up to par. He stumbled outside to his car. He couldn't have gotten too far. For when I replied, "Your trigger's what's died," he lit his exploding cigar. One, Anabaptists, field 2, B, lip in a daisy, C, pond muck. 2, curtailing assumptions such that A, frog muck, B, panopticon the hazards, C, signage, escalator, mutant, tut. 3, stilt, silt, A, busker, conflagration, B, amino acids, C, lobby here for the downtown train. 4, or shit, A, lips, B, frog lard, C, decently if willing, if you and mostly, if partners, aunts. Now you, the bride, extort, compactability, makest thou the one's beloved. Briscoe, was it? He spends his Saturday nights punching the clown, or she and her pumped up tatas. Jokes the reed in the speeding current you cling to at last give way. Disaster doubles in the slightest slight. On the fighting floor without trainer or mouth guard, hugging one rope then another, you see the stars bang with a roar their circuitous auger of night on your skull. The mind a crumbled caulked with glue, baker's dozen, cranberry scone, eggs, ribeye, bone. Bye, kid in first grade on your paddle cart. Bye, Lorraine, outward bound in the snow. Bye, motorcycle David. Bye, you bright spirits born of my friends, Jimmy, Natalie. Bye, beautiful one, your father said your pink skin would be tender. I was afraid for you. Bye, one's devoted mother, another's devoted son. Bye to Playboy Club Bill, to the Roxy Bill, to the Bill going aft with the cross. Bye, dickering friend to Sonia. I wanted to show you up. Bye, Dad. Bye, Mom. Bye, Duncan's dancing bear, shining, shining. Bye, great dogs I have known, cats, raccoon I hit. Bye to Bob Liberty, you must be gone. Bye to the beggar, no more on his corner. Bye, Ben, sparklers and flowers, the lamp of the music. Bye, Barbara Latham, Abanata, Ray Yoshida. Bye, Chelsea. Bye, Meldrum and Carol, Gladys, Olive C. Bye, May and Winslow, my lovely first cousin. Bye to the husband who was the best wife. Bye to those I fear dead. I know you all in his absence tonight. I know you all in his absence tonight. So that's a little bit of a flavor from the last part. And I wanted to read one more poem that's, it's actually it's not an evergreen, as they say in the news business. It's, takes place, really, the speaking of it takes place during the Gulf oil spill. But this is the place to read it. To remind you of the golden days before Rahm left Washington and arrived here, back here, I should say. Suppression. He took the ham for his forerunners' failures. If you don't like the ham, get gone from the dinner, or so Rahm said in his usual white ham. The ham index was up in the ham wave of summer. One night in a dream, his ham gun zapped Karzai, then the high explosive anti-tank missed, and the oncoming came on. He woke in him water. The ham index was up in the ham wave of summer. If ham lightning happened to ignite the Gulf, each gully, each inlet, beach piping him, in the ham of the moment, no worse off he'd be. The ham index was up in the ham wave of summer. His tween wanted hymn pants. His teen had the hymns for the hymnist gone boy benched on the team. He's full of hymn air, but this fell on deaf ears. The ham index was up in the ham wave of summer. You gauge the ham of our livers by the bitter in your galls, he thought, his ham rising then, but wags we are too. None were hymn stuff. The ham index was up in the ham wave of summer. 99, Mississippi ham at Teresa's south side. 02, Reverend H. Ham at that joint off of Lincoln. Night the Rev was arrested for his packing ham. The ham index was up in the ham wave of summer. Notes sought now too, not canned ham, but at this ham, reprisal, storm of notes equal to this. No surprise some folks get a ham on and tank. The ham index was up ham wave of summer. Not he. He was ham resistant. He could strike the tycoons while they were him. He could buoy those broke by ham exhaustion on the border, by job loss, ham rash, by him dogs in suits. He could take it hot. The heat he could take in the summer heat wave with the heat index high in that hot, hot July. Thank you.